You're watching News at Prime. Let's continue the discussion around Stilfontein, the ongoing operations to try and retrieve both illegal mine workers who are alive and those who have died. The South African Federation of Trade Unions slamming the government for what it says is a lack of humanity shown. Saftu also saying that the constitutional right to life has been violated. Let's speak now to the General Secretary of Saftu, Zwelinzima Vavi. Mr. Vavi, good afternoon to you, and thank you very much for your time. Before we talk to you in your capacity as a trade union leader, can I just ask for your thoughts as an ordinary South African? A short while ago, we listened to a family member who are desperately waiting for their loved one to surface and resurface alive. But she says, watching the pathology vans that have lined the street now, it's just gotten her to that stage of weakness again. She had been trying to garner some strength all along, but now she's almost at breaking point. How does that situation unfolding there make you feel as an ordinary South African?
We are simply devastated. We have no words to express how we should explain how we feel about that situation unfolding in Stilfontein. We met as in Tom, the lady that you were interviewing. On the 13th of December, we were there. She's from somewhere in the Eastern Cape. I can't just remember exactly where. We met with her together with a group of other women. I remember one, Miss Nduli of Umlazi, and a few others, born, bred, Khuma residents, which is a black township around Stilfontein. And the one that you were interviewing has her brother underground. And Nduli of Umlazi has a husband and 2 sons underground. The guys from Khuma, all of them, have either a husband or a son underground. Just imagine today putting yourself in their shoes. Firstly, you know, a human body takes an hour before it gives you an intolerable stench. 1 hour sitting next to the body. Imagine now 78 bodies who have decomposed, most of them over, who knows, weeks, days, or we don't know. And the whole place should be just having an unbearable stench of human bodies decomposing. And to be a wife waiting for 2 of your sons and your husband smelling the human body should be the last thing you will want to subject any human being to.
You talk about that. In fact, this might be the opportune time to recall what I listened to earlier on the radio today. One of the volunteers who goes down with the cage and helps those that are wanting to get on the cage to come up to the surface. The understanding is that he has not been able to eat for 2 days. And his wife, this is information we're getting from our colleagues in Mhlaba, who says his wife is extremely worried about just his own state of health whilst he continues to volunteer. What you are painting is perhaps what the rescuers, especially the volunteers, are going through. But again, I'm trying to ask this question of you, Mr. Vavi. Do you think ordinary South Africans have a heart to understand the tragedy that's unfolding there? Or are people so set on their framing of this situation that these are criminals, they should not have been helped in the first place because they got there illegally?
You never know how many people that are speaking in the social media and what sentiment they represent of society. But if you follow me and my postings, you will be shocked. Even today, I posted just after watching your program that there are 78 people today, up to date, that have been found. The response is, let them die. They deserve to die. They are criminals. They are foreigners. And we should have long put a concrete slab on top of the mine for them for us to forget about them. Crime doesn't pay, so say some of them. It's shocking. It's shocking because the people have been framed into believing that all of these people are Mozambicans. All of them volunteered to come to the mines and that they were not tricked by entrepreneurs, that is jobs somewhere in South Africa when they were recruited from Lesotho, Mozambique, and Malawi. All of them are disturbingly criminal, to quote the president when he was referring to the Marikana massacre victims. And none of them are South Africans. So we should have no feelings for these animals. After all, they deserve to die. What were they doing in our country? Stealing our gold. Whose gold is that, by the way, that is being stolen there? It's incredible, the level of naivety and coldness. You know what I said during the day is that once you start celebrating the death of anyone because he is a foreigner, you disagree with him politically or ideologically, and that he belongs to another region, then you have crossed the line of being a normal human being. You are barbarian yourself. You have now become a person. And I've seen this thing, you know, every day. By the way, what we are watching here, being tortured on your television, we are tortured every day watching the unfolding, I don't want to say tragedy, unfolding genocide in Palestine and in Lebanon. And I've seen soldiers of Israel celebrating the killing of babies, mothers, and old men who are defenseless in the face of their most sophisticated weaponry. We should never be turned into animals as the people. For goodness sake, all of us were involved in a struggle. At the center of that struggle was for the return of our dignity as a people. At the center was the right of life of everybody. And that's why our Constitution said anyone within our borders deserve our protection as the state. Now, we're sitting in a situation where actually, and our people don't understand this, it is the government that has the prime responsibility to protect the lives of anybody within the borders. We don't care how those people would have come here or whether they are Mozambican and South African. They are human beings. The starting point is that we are talking about men who are breadwinners, who have their sons and daughters watching the television, and or who are sitting outside, overwhelmed by the stench coming out of the mine, not knowing whether these are their fathers, their brothers, or not.
Mr. Vavi, I want to pause you, and pause you deliberately, because the point you've just made about somehow South Africans being desensitized to understanding that human life is sacrosanct. We're going to pause the conversation and continue with it shortly after the business news, but I want to leave it on this point. I wonder if the team has lined up the soundbite of the Deputy Minister of Police, Pauli Bushielo. I'm told that that soundbite is ready. You have just explained the reaction of people whenever you post on social media. have a listen to a leader and their characterization of what South Africans should be thinking about that situation. And we'll continue thereafter. Let's just have a look at this.
We are setting a wrong precedence to say people can get under the ground to do illegal mining, get all the money and everything, and then we will then come and rescue them as government, or people will come and say they are human rights, humanities, and then take us to court on illegal things. So next time, I can tell you, it's going to come out from somewhere, and the very same people will be taking us to court. And then there will be a chaos in this country, and there will be lawlessness. So we are not even dealing with South Africans who really, you can say, they're trying to make a living. They are not, they are illegal. Like you said, they don't even have correct documentation. But I can tell you what we're doing now is a bad precedence. This is attack and sabotage to our economy, but we're trying to protect them and make them heroes.
So very strong views from a leader serving in government. We are going to continue this conversation. Let's continue with our coverage on the operations, the ongoing operations at Stilfontein. Still with me in studio is the South African Federation of Trade Unions General Secretary, Zwelinzima Vavi. Mr. Vavi, you have heard the Deputy Minister of Police, and this is a government official. And I'd like for you to contrast her views with those of the two ministers, one of them the principal to the Ministry of Police, Senzo Mchunu, and Gwede Mantashe. You would recall that for some time, Minister Mantashe had not gone to Stilfontein. In fact, this week became the very first time that he went down there. Do you sense a change of attitude in government, perhaps given the calamity that's going on there now?
I don't know when you interviewed the Deputy Minister.
It was this morning.
Oh, my goodness. So she was saying those things knowing that by last night there were 59 bodies in the mortuaries all over the Northwest. I am in shock that we have people like this Deputy Minister in government. From the ANC, it's even worse. This is a liberation movement which I was explaining which led the struggle for the return of human dignity of all South Africans and put everything on the line for that noble cause. To have a Deputy Minister now who really speaks like an ordinary person on Twitter or X or Facebook. Absolutely no sense of the unfolding crisis, human tragedy, unfolding in front of our eyes. And there is a difference even if people come from the same ANC. Senzo Mchunu is a human being, he's a normal human being. And that's why he's been going in and out of Stilfontein since last year as a Minister of Police. And by the way, that's not a police matter. And that's where South Africans get it wrong. This is a matter for minerals and the DMR. This is a failure to regulate the mining industry. This is failure to enforce 8 pieces of legislation that says this is how you should close a mine. This is how you should get a license to close the mine. This is your responsibility to rehabilitation of the mine. This is how you should seal this mine. This is how you should protect the environment and protect the environment around 8 pieces of legislation. Senzo Mchunu should have never been to there. The police themselves should have never had an Operation Valamgoti because the Minerals Department should have ensured that it enforces the law so that the mining companies who have abandoned 6,100 mines in South Africa and left the country are held responsible and accountable by the minister of minerals and energy. But there you are, a humanist was forced to go there and to command the police on the ground and to try and save lives.
Well,
The Minister Gwede
Mandashe
Mandashe says he's not going, that's a crime scene. Hey. So say the General Secretary of the National Union of Mine Workers.
That's the question I was about to ask, because there is a former unionist who holds the view that Stilfontein is a crime scene. He has nothing to do with that. But when he did eventually go down to the ground, he says Buffelsfontein Gold is the owner of the shafts there at Stilfontein. Therefore, government cannot be held accountable.
The government is a custodian of our minerals. The government is a regulator. The government issues licenses in terms of the legislation to all companies. The law says the government must issue a license whenever the company wants to close the mine, and it must follow a particular procedure. It is the responsibility of Minister Gwede Mandashe to ensure that the mining companies comply with the law. He has dismally failed to do so. And therefore, you cannot escape responsibility now and suddenly say, no, go to the mining company and for the destruction of the environment, not just in Stilfontein and Carletonville, but all over South Africa.
We have less than a minute left. By the way, you have been to Stilfontein. If Minister Mandashe holds the view that those shafts belong to this company, Buffelsfontein Gold, and perhaps in his view, and I guess his understanding is that the mining company in question perhaps still operates at these mine shafts. You've been there. Does that place look like an operation that is owned or that is run by a mining company that should still be responsible for it?
No. I'm sure you're watching this story every day. This is a dark, big hole that goes 2.8 kilometers underground. It doesn't have a shaft. It doesn't have anything like to link up. Clearly, I don't know how these workers thought about operating there. You know, they have a makeshift structure which they drop food and each other with the ropes, sheer ropes, just to underline the desperation that should be driving them to go down to work 2.8 kilometers on a rope. A lot of South Africans, this is very important, let me just conclude this. People who are commenting on social media simply have not gone there to see that it is just physically not possible to come out of that mine. They say, we have seen people coming out, why don't they come out? They don't know that there is no link whatsoever between Buffelsfontein Shaft 11 and Margaret Shaft 5 in Stilfontein. In fact, it is 12 kilometers distance between the two mines. The only link that the Buffelsfontein Shaft 11 can possibly use, and some of them have used it, is in Shaft 10 nearby. But they say, these workers, it takes 37 hours to crawl on your knees because the workplace, after all, is 1.5 meters. To crawl for 37 meters when we have not had food in a week or two to go to Shaft 10. The South Africans simply don't know the facts.
Okay.
But they are so happy to say, bury them. They're following, after all, the minister in the presidency. They're following the footsteps of the Minister of Minerals who said this is a crime stop. I'm not coming. The police must deal with the matter, which is a minerals energy matter. And they're following other xenophobes in society who are keen to see other people die because they happen not to be South Africans in
Mr.
their
Vavi,
view.
I'm hoping that you still have time in your hands, because we can continue the conversation in the next hour. But for the moment, I'd like to hand over to sports, because there's a whole range of other topics that we have not touched on, and we're still going to talk to other parties, including the company that is involved in these operations at Stilfontein. So I'm hoping that, Mr. Vavi, you still have time for us. Do you?
I do.
General Secretary of Saftu, Zwelinzima Vavi, is still with us. Mr. Vavi, thank you for staying on and for your patience. How does that make you feel that this operation is seemingly concluded? 78 people, though, have died.
Well, he does say that they will go back tomorrow just to ensure that indeed there are no more bodies and or there are no more persons waiting to be rescued. If this is a final figure, we will sort of be relieved that it doesn't reach 200 as estimated by some people on the ground. And I hope that this company, which have received 12 million rands from the Mineral Council, does not do a rush job in order to save as much money as it can at the expense of the lives of ordinary people. You do need, if you have been into the mine, you know that there are layers of shaft. You start from 1.6 kilometers up to 2.8. These layers, you go to a particular level, it's spread out kilometers away. You go to the next level, it spreads out kilometers and so forth. I hope that they don't just rush in a lift and then take it out and say, we hear no screams. People who have been in the mine underground for 4-6 weeks without food will not be able to scream for help because they will be dying somewhere under the rubble in the underground. We hope that they will do. Our call to them is that please don't do the usual profit before the lives of people. Do a thorough job, go down, get those communities who are helping out to walk and to make sure that there is nobody who is remaining. And here's the point that I want to conclude with, if you allow us. Why are we here in the first place?
Yeah.
Because you remember, I just hinted this in the previous segment of the interview, that actually it was on the 21st of November when the Saftu delegation went to Stilfontein. We were not allowed to go anywhere close to that hole because at that time, it was on a Thursday, we were being told that the 3 phases to rescue these workers have already started. They've excavated the land and they were going to send food, and on a Monday, they said that they are going to send a drone to search for people and to get a lift down to bring them up. That Monday would have been around the 24th of November. We are now on the 16th of January. 2 months have passed with no action whatsoever. Now you understand where we're coming from when we're saying that this is yet another massacre. This is a premeditated murder, mass murder of people. If government would have saved and rescued those people on the 21st, 22, 23 of November, we will not be talking about 78 bodies at this particular point. And you can't allow, therefore, a minister to say, we bear no responsibility. Some gold mining company must shoulder the blame. No, that's nonsense. That's absolutely a pathetic statement to make in the context of what I've just told you.
Mr. Vavi, I want to conclude the conversation on somewhat of a political note. You are a politician as well, and I can't not almost juxtapose what's going on at Stilfontein versus what is happening in Mozambique, which is one of the countries that is mentioned almost all the time. You have heard the health spokesperson saying it would appear, at least right now, that the majority of not only those that are arrested, but those that have died come from Mozambique. That country today is inaugurating a president post a disputed election. I'd like for you to just listen for a moment to one of the leaders, opposition leaders, that we spoke to. This was actually on the day that Venancio Mondlane was landing at Maputo International Airport. I'd like for you to listen to this opposition leader, and you'll give me your thoughts thereafter.
We can hear the president of South Africa. He knows that 50% of our gas in Mozambique goes to South Africa. 80% of our electricity in Mozambique go to South Africa. They buy it on less amount. While here in Mozambique, we pay double amount of what is produced in our country. And they will tell us who are busy flocking their countries, when in actual fact, our country is being looted by South Africa, it's being looted by Rwanda, it's being looted by France. And we in Mozambique, who are treated as slaves, we live in misery, and you are being shot by the guns that they have, which they exchange with these countries.
Solomon Mondlane, one of the opposition leaders in Mozambique, and the point for me of what he says that we will be told that we're flocking into their countries. And today we talk about the majority of Mozambicans who are among those arrested and possibly those who are dead there. Do you think the regional leaders, including the leader of South Africa, are doing justice to these people, to the memory of these people, given the state of the economies of South Africa's neighbors?
We normally talk about imperialism, but we also talk about sub-imperialism. And South Africa is often being accused of being a sub-imperialist and playing that role to its neighbors and to the rest of the African continent. Our daughters and sons have been sent to the northern parts of Mozambique to fight a war on behalf of multinational companies that are lining up to exploit the massive gas fields around Cabo Delgado. And they have been there, of course, with a clear instruction from France. The French president, if you remember, came unscheduled to union buildings, clearly to lobby South Africa to ensure that it has soldiers to put guard on this vast gas fields in the northern parts of Mozambique. There were complications in the Southern African Army, and it ended up being Rwanda in the main that takes charge of these gas fields. Our soldiers get diverted to fight now in the opposite of the Rwanda army in the DRC. Again, not to establish peace, but to fight to protect the interest of the multinational corporations in the DRC. You know, we have carried reports here of some of them dying in what is clearly a very ill-prepared operation of just sending our kids, our daughters and sons, brothers and sisters to die in a foreign country for the interest of the multinational corporations that are now exploiting the minerals of the DRC as they have just finished to almost finished our iron and ore in South Africa, and they're almost finishing our gold reserves. And a lot of people, this is what makes me sick. When people say they are stealing our mines, they are stealing our gold. Hold on. What are you talking about? Whose gold? How have you benefited as a black South African from this gold that you want to protect and to celebrate the death of 78 people who are stealing our gold and who are illegal foreign minerals? So that's the first point I want to make. The second point, I can bet with my last cent the president will not whisper to the new incoming president of Mozambique to say, you guys, perhaps like us in South Africa, are driving your country into a dustbin. Mozambicans do not come to South Africa by choice. They do not cross the Kruger National Park such that you discover only a wallet when a whole body cannot be traced at a choice. None of us know what we will do if you were to spend 4 or 5 days in a week with your children crying to you, sitting helplessly, not knowing what to do. People are driven by desperation. The fact that most of the people who are being rescued in these mines, who are Zamazamas, are from Mozambique, is not coincidence. It's because the revolution there failed, just like the revolution here in South Africa is failing. One time, I normally say this in my speeches, don't be surprised that we in South Africa, now with 42% unemployment rate and 70% of our young people below the age of 25 unemployed, we will be finding ourselves in the Lebombo River trying to walk up to the DRC because we hear that there's mining activity there as illegal foreigners in those borders ourselves. Never be cold, never not appreciate what men and women are being subjected to by failed revolutions in our region and throughout the continent.
Zwelinzima Vavi, thank you very much for your time.